Dauntless is a game that I actually got to play back when I worked at IGN, and it was in alpha state at the time. And when I got in, it was pretty bare bones. The UI wasn't great, it wasn't fleshed out, it was very much just a lot of text on the screen, and there wasn't a lot of flair and pizzazz. But the one thing that stood out to me about the game was the combat. I could immediately see that after playing the combat for 5 minutes and hunting my first monster that this game had tons of potential, and I couldn't wait to see where it went. Well, Dauntless is almost here, and it comes out in April of this year. Currently, you can play it on PC in open beta, and it's basically a full game at this point with the updated UI. Tons of changes to combat, tons of things to unlock and do, all for free, by the way. And it's also coming to PS4 and Xbox One at its full release in April, and I wouldn't be surprised if sometime in March or in February there's a beta for the console version as well. If you are uninitiated or don't know what Dauntless is, it's basically free-to-play Western Monster Hunter, which is how I would usually pitch it to my friends. It follows the exact same formula. You have a character, you upgrade your armor and build new weapons and new armor sets that have specific perks, and the way you do this is by hunting bad monsters, which are basically boss fights, and getting their parts and their hides and their scales and making that into the stuff you need, and breaking specific parts off the monsters, all that good stuff. What kind of differentiates it from Monster Hunter is the combat. Monster Hunter is kind of clunky and slow, and I know that a lot of people actually like that about the game. I played a bunch of Monster Hunter World, and I could never really get past it. 30 hours in, I still kind of felt like I was just kind of bad at the game. And I recently went back to Monster Hunter World after playing maybe 20 hours of Dauntless, and I just kind of couldn't do it. Like, I feel like Dauntless has kind of spoiled me, to be honest. This game just feels so good. It's super snappy, it's super fast, and the hunts are way faster. The lore behind the game is that the world is separated into a bunch of floating islands, and on these islands there are monsters that are bad, and you need to hunt them and kill them. And that's it, basically. There's not really a story. They don't really do any setup or anything. They're just like, hey, you're gonna hunt monsters and you're gonna level up and you're gonna have a good time with your friends, and we're gonna do all kinds of cool stuff, and it's gonna be a great time. And basically, that's the game. If you like hunting monsters, if you liked Monster Hunter but wish there wasn't a story and wish it was way easier for you to play with your friends, I have good news for you, because Dauntless is basically that game. Getting into a party of friends is really easy, and playing hunts is also really easy. Not that the hunts are necessarily easy, but just that the matchmaking is just better. You can pretty much solo this game and have a party of people to play with immediately. They have a number of different ways for you to queue, which are like patrol, or you can hunt specific monsters, and other people trying to do that exact same activity will get matchmaked into a session with you, and it's super fast. The average hunt lasts maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Some of the longer or harder ones will be about 20 minutes, but it all just feels way faster, smoother, snappier. It's just a more crispy experience, in my opinion, than something like Monster Hunter World. And I know that some people who prefer Monster Hunter World might come into Dauntless and think this is too easy, or it's just not deep enough, because right now it's not incredibly deep. It doesn't have all of the crafting depth that something like Monster Hunter World has. The gem system, which I'll get into in a minute, in Dauntless doesn't really have the depth that Monster Hunter World does. There's not like a botany system. There's not like a bounty system per se. Like, there's a lot missing from the experience, but based on what I played in the alpha, which had almost none of what I just described, it was basically just hunting monsters, and that was it, with minimal UI and minimal paths of progression and stuff. The game has expanded tremendously in the last year, and I'm really looking forward to the final release. And like I said at the top of the video, Dauntless is completely free. It's in open beta on PC right now, and you can download it and start playing right now. You don't need a weird account, you don't need a key. You can just start. But if you're waiting for PS4 or Xbox, keep an eye out for an open beta on those platforms. I would be shocked if there's not a beta sometime before the launch in April, or if the launch in April will count as the beta, but Nevertheless, you're only a couple months away from playing it on console, which I am actually interested to see how it controls on a controller. I haven't plugged in like an Xbox One controller into the PC version to see, but I know that it does work because I've seen the buttons pop up and stuff by accident, but I did not try it yet. Once again, I keep getting off track, but Dauntless is completely free. You don't pay for power, you don't pay for anything in the game. You can play it completely for free. It's very akin to like Warframe, where most of the content, or I would say the majority of the content outside of things in the Battle Pass, which we'll get into in a minute, you can earn in-game. It's all free. There's no way to really like pay for power. Basically, there's a shop in-game. You buy a currency called Platinum, and with Platinum, you can buy new emotes and new sword and weapon skins and armor skins and transmog cores, but they're not things that are gonna really like help you in the end game. There's experience boosts and stuff like that, which will help you get there faster, but it's not gonna make you a better hunter. It's not going to, you know, all of a sudden you're gonna buy the best sword and then none of the monsters are able to just withstand you. That's not really how this game works, and it's not how I imagine it's going to work, especially since they launched their Battle Pass system recently, which is akin to the one in Fortnite, but with some major differences. And I guess we'll talk about that for a minute. The Battle Pass in Dauntless is actually probably the best version of it I've ever seen. My problem with the Battle Pass in Fortnite is that a lot of the quests it makes you do are things that you just kind of wouldn't really do in the game. Like, they require you to play the game in such a different way, or do things that are kind of antithetical to the experience, as to just level up and get skins, and then you're not really even playing the game at that point. Like, for instance, last season when I was playing Fortnite a bit, a quest where you had to dance under a bunch of streetlights in specific areas, and it would take multiple games for you to go find all these streetlights. You had to look up guides online and you had to do it, and instead of trying to be the last person alive and trying to play the game, you were kind of just hunting for streetlights, and it wasn't really fun. It kind of makes you play the game in a way that is not really playing the game. You're kind of just doing busy work, and that's not really fun. What I like about the Dauntless Battle Pass is that you level it up by getting a currency, which is acquired by completing quests and by leveling up certain things or smashing parts off monsters, and the quests are all really simple. They're basically akin to just playing the game. You might get a quest that's a weekly that will reward you 2 ranks on your Battle Pass, a bunch of experience towards one of your in-game reputation ranks, a bunch of gear, etc., and it'll be something like hunt 10 behemoths using swords. You might not main swords, but you're just killing monsters, which is the game. You're just playing the game, which I like. And it's never like, oh, I'm gonna go to this level and pick 10 resources so I can finish this quest, or like, oh, I need to emote in front of this monster for 10 seconds without getting hit. There's none of that weirdness. There's none of those things. It's very focused on you actually playing the game. And the ones where maybe they push you outside of your comfort zone are still sort of keeping you playing and just sort of pushing you into different modes of play. For example, you know, you might get one that's, you know, hunt 5 monsters using hammers. And I, at the time when I got a quest like that, did not have a hammer at all. I had never used a hammer, I didn't own one, I didn't craft one, so I immediately had to go to the weaponsmith and was like, okay, what can I use? What can I craft? Ended up crafting a pretty, not low level, but mid-range for my current rank hammer. And then I went into a lower level hunt and started experimenting with it, figured out how the reload mechanic worked, which I will get into. All the weapons have their own sort of mechanics, which is really interesting, similar to Monster Hunter. And figured that out, and then as I played my 5 hunts with my hammer, I ended up figuring out the combos and cool tricks and how I could stagger certain monsters when they were doing certain moves using certain moves of my own, and it was really rewarding. And on top of that, I got Battle Pass points, and I got experience for my end game, and I got all kinds of things, and it was really nice. It wasn't me dancing under streetlights, as I'll put it. That being said, I still have a lot of feelings about how Battle Pass systems work. Usually, I'm not a big fan of how they kind of just go away, even though you've spent this money and now you can't really unlock things anymore that you kind of paid for. and that kind of sucks, but at least the Dauntless pass doesn't require you to play for like 100 hours a season to get everything. You will have to play pretty regularly if you want to reach the end of it, but it's not as demanding as probably the Fortnite one is. But who knows, this is the first time they've done it, and so far this game is just killing it on all fronts, and I'm really, really enjoying it. Last thing before we go, I had mentioned that all of the weapons have different mechanics similar to Monster Hunter. They all have different super moves and combos, and it's really rewarding to learn them all. They just recently added handguns, which feel awesome. It's really cool to go into a hunt and have everyone use different weapons to stagger at different times or accomplish different goals. For instance, some weapons will be better at bursting parts off of enemies, which you can use for crafting, and others are better at just doing some basic damage. And it's kind of up to you to figure out what you like best and kind of experiment with them. And it's fun to do, and I find myself playing with weapons that I had never used before and finding them really fun, and then ultimately going back to the ones that I really love, but not ever feeling like I'm at a disadvantage for using weapons that I like using. The game does a really good job of pushing you towards the things you like, but also rewarding you when you go outside of your comfort zone. There is a gem system similar to Monster Hunter, and I kind of want to talk about it here, but it might warrant its own video. It's not a bad system, it just sort of feels out of place with the rest of the game. It feels more like something you would get in, say, Warframe than you would in Monster Hunter, and it kind of doesn't gel with the rest of it. And that's mainly the crafting part of it. The rest of it, the actual slotting the gems into weapons and armor and then being able to just take them out whenever you want and really customize your loadout, I love all that, but the crafting feels a little strange, and I wouldn't be surprised if they change it up at some point in the future. But it's not a game breaker, and it's not a bad system. It just sort of feels out of place in the game currently. But again, it's an open beta, everything is subject to change. Anyways, if you want to try Dauntless out for yourself, again, completely for free on PC right now, I'll put a link in the description to where you can download it and hunt some monsters. If you liked this video and want to support me, go ahead and like, favorite, subscribe, all that good stuff, and let me know in the comments if you're excited about Dauntless and what platform you'll be playing it on when it launches. Thanks, guys, gals, everything in between. Love you. Bye.